Welcome to Khanversations. I'm Muqtedar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about some international intrigue, spycraft, and some kind of well, there's no other way to describe it other than international intrigue. So I'm basically going to talk to you about this article that was published in The Intercept by Murtaza Hussain and Ryan Grimm, claiming that they have seen a memo. They call it a secret Indian memo that was leaked. That's what they claim, and that they had seen this memo. And in the memo, basically recommends that the Indian embassies in North America, particularly in Canada, and consulates and embassies in both US and UK, basically organized to take some strict measures against the Sikh and Khalistani organizations in both US and Canada. And they come up with some kind of suggestions that says that the consulate staff should work with Indian intelligence staff in order to take strict measures against these groups, and also recognize that they have penetrated the governments here, obviously referring to the great influence that the Khalistani movement and its supporters enjoy over Trudeau's government. And in order to do that, the Indian embassy staffers, etc., should cooperate with the Canadian Mounted Police as well as other law enforcement agencies to at least apprise them of these various Khalistani movements, supporters who are participating in government activities or quote unquote penetrating US and Canadian governments in order to advance the Khalistani agenda from within these governments. So that is what the memo is supposed to have had in its contents. There is no claim that there's going to be an assassination plot. It does mention Nijar, but it does not say that they should be killed, but does recommend strong measures. I will show you the memo during the course of this discussion, so you can see for yourself what the contents of the memo are. So essentially, the way I look at it is that after the news broke out, the Ministry of External Affairs and Arindam Bagchi, who is a spokesperson for the Indian Ministry of External Affairs, basically called this a fake memo. It's fabricated. It's not real. There is no such memo. He asserts very, very dogmatically there is no such memo. And he also alleges that the Intercept has often worked with the Pakistani intelligence, and this seems like a campaign to malign India and India's reputation. So before I go into the discussion of these issues, I basically want to explore whether it is a fake or a leak. So that's the way I want to see. If it's a fake, what does it mean? And if it's a leak, what does that mean? So before I do that, please subscribe to Khanversations, like this video, press the bell icon so that you get notifications of all the new videos that I post. And I average more than 4 to 5 videos per week. Also make sure that you share this video with your friends and your social network. And if you like to support Khanversation, try and become a member of Khanversations. The button to become member is called Join, and it's right next to the button to subscribe to the channel. So a few days ago, that is December 10th, Murtaza Hussain and Ryan Grimm, they published it before, but they updated the article on December 10th. An article titled Secret Indian Memo Ordered Concrete Measures Against Hardeep Singh Nijjar 2 months before his assassination in Canada. So this memo is dated around April 6, 2023. And so these authors basically look at the memo. They do not publish the document at that time. The article was published by a pro-Khalistan news source called Baz News that was published very recently, just a few hours ago. What they claim that they had seen such a document, and in that document they basically talk about how the Indian government was essentially plotting to take concrete measures, and they imply that concrete measures essentially is a way. So they are kind of claiming that they have got this smoking gun, I guess, that the Indian government was indeed plotting to kill Najjar, even though that is not exactly what it seems. However, if you notice that the US indictment does say that the Indian government official who hired uh, a criminal drug smuggler to hire a killer essentially implied that there was a long list of people they wanted assassinated, and probably those names are in this memo. The Indian Ministry of External Affairs, as you can see, responded within a few hours, saying in response to media queries or reports of MEA's secret memo in April 2023, the official spokesman Arindam Bagchi said, "We strongly assert that such reports are fake and completely fabricated. There is no such memo. This is part of a sustained disinformation campaign against India. The outlet in question is known for propagating fake narratives peddled by Pakistani intelligence. The posts of the authors confirm this linkage." So basically, they are saying this is Pakistani ISI propaganda, and therefore it should not be taken seriously. But immediately after the denial from the Ministry of External Affairs in India, this Buzz News published this, and as you can see, they published this 3-page memo, which comes from Vinay Quatra, who's the Secretary of External Affairs, which means that he is the highest ranking bureaucrat in the ministry, and the only person higher than him is the foreign minister. But if you look at this memo, there are two things that you can assert about it. It's either a genuine memo, which was leaked, then we need to ask who leaked it and for what purpose, or it is a fake. And then the question arises, who fabricated this memo, which looks somewhat authentic? But first, take a look at it. I'm not sure that the Indian government labels memos as secret. We don't even know what a secret memo is. If it is secret, then why is it being sent to so many cities and to so many staffers? That is one question. So they would probably say this memo is classified, and I am sure that the Indian government has various levels of classifications. So the classification level of this memo would be on top of it. If you notice, when you look at all the official statements from the Ministry of External Affairs, they sometimes include both the flag as well as the Ashok, the symbol of those 3 lions that you see. The second thing that I noticed when I looked at this memo was that even though it was signed by Vinay Quatra, it does not list what his title is below him, but you can see it says from Foreign Secretary on top in the beginning on page 1, but it is addressed to the High Commissioner of India in Ottawa. Why wouldn't they name him? It's as if the person who typed this letter does not know the name of the High Commissioner in Ottawa. This is kind of puzzling to me, silly. This was my second clue that this is probably a fake memo. I would think that a proper memo would actually name from foreign New Delhi. What the heck is that? From foreign New Delhi. No, it would say from Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi, or Foreign Off. Oh, that is so stupid. From foreign New Delhi to HCI Ottawa. I think that itself gives me a lot of suggestions that this is either some very incompetent person who works for the Secretary of State, potentially an IFS officer, or this memo has been done in a rush and fake produced in a rush and not proofread very well. Anyway, so the memo goes on to talk about extremist organizations. It lists all of them. But if you look at the assessment, and this is where I began to realize that this is not really a very real assessment at all. For example, in the third paragraph, it explains as to why the the West continues to pressure India. And apparently, that in spite of the fact that the West needs uh, India to contain China, and right, the West keeps utilizing Khalistan as a geopolitical tool to squeeze India and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. In the during the, I really don't understand that the U.S. and the West apparently have two contradictory goals. One is to come closer to India, and the other is to try to change its policies towards Russia. If you recall, the West went to great extent to ensure that India's G20, which was in September, 3 months after this, 4 or 5 months after this, was quite successful, and partly because the West underplayed its position on the Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, in the final statement, there was no condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine specifically. And so it was able to go through because China and Russia were blocking it otherwise. So I'm not very sure that at this time, the US had given up on trying to get India to remain anything other than neutral, plus already Prime Minister Modi's statement that this is not an era of war, which he lately forgot after after Israel responded to the Hamas attacks. He doesn't say that anymore, but at that time, the prime minister kept repeating that this is not an era of war, and the West was quite happy with it. So this whole idea that the US and Canada are going to all these extent of supporting the Khalistan movement as a leverage against India, I don't think it makes much sense to me. The suggestion that the Western countries are providing a guiding hand in pro-Khalistan campaign, which has posed a grave challenge to our global interest. So this idea, this allegation that Western governments are helping the Khalistan movement, this is not an allegation that will be made so casually. And so if you look at the way forward, in the first paragraph in that section, you can see that they do mention Singh Nijjar, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, and then says concrete measures shall be adopted to hold the suspects accountable. And there is no such suggestion of assassination or anything. But most of the recommendations that the memo is making, if the memo is legitimate, are legitimate, that it is against India's interests, that these separatist movements who also advocate terrorism continue to thrive in the US and Canada. And so the Indian government should do whatever it can to essentially undermine those forces which challenge its sovereignty and its territorial integrity. So first of all, I think the memo does not look properly unless the level of, like I said, competence levels are pretty low in the Ministry of External Affairs from foreign New Delhi. What does that mean? And that I'm not very sure that this is an official letterhead at all. This looks like it's just typed up. And the third thing is, while the secretary signs his name, there is no direct address to the High Commissioner in Ottawa. And a copy is sent to Embassy of India in Washington, and then Consulate Generals in New York, Chicago, Houston, San Francisco, Atlanta, Vancouver, and Toronto. So all of these places, this thing is gone. So first of all, I'm convinced that this is a fake memo. And one more reason why I suspect this is, if you look at a subsequent statement that that Ryan Grimm made, in that he says at the end of that, in any event, Baz News, an outlet for the Sikh diaspora, subsequently published a document that supports our reporting and makes a mockery of the Indian government's denial. But the thing is, there can't be many memos out there. So the first article that Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussain wrote was based on their seeing the original memo. They just didn't want to publish it, they said, because they do not want to reveal how they got it. So basically, they don't want us to guess who leaked it to them, and therefore they didn't publish the memo. I don't know how, because right now I'm seeing the memo and I cannot guess specifically. I can just speculate, like I said, when I talk about it as a potential leak rather than a fake fabrication. I will explain to you who I suspect could have leaked this. But what is interesting to me is that published a document. Ryan Grimm is not saying that in any event, Bars News has published the memo or the secret memo. He's saying it's published a document as if it's some other document that substantiates their reporting, but it's not the memo in question. So that also makes me very suspicious that Ryan Grimm, who's a very good reporter, I watch him a lot on breaking points. He does a great job, especially on the Israel-Hamas. He's very critical of Israel's excessive responses. And so I do have some respect for Ryan Grimm. I'm not familiar with Murtaza Hussein's work. This is the first article that I've read by him. But this is a giveaway, saying in any event, Baz News, an outlet for the Sikh diaspora, subsequently published a document. They're not saying he published the memo. So there can't be 2 or 3 documents out there which substantiate that claim. So this also suggests to me that Ryan Grimm is also aware that this probably is not the memo that he saw, obviously. So I wish he would come out and publish the memo that he saw and say, well, this is exactly the same document that Baz News published. So that is one more troubling thing that suggests to me that there is something shady going on behind these claims. Well, what if it is indeed let us say that it is a leak rather than a fake. So if it is a leak rather than a fake, then who could have leaked it and why? So it could have been leaked by somebody in the Ministry of External Affairs in Delhi. It could have been sent by email in Delhi to Ryan Grimm, or it could have been sent to the Baz News people, to the Khalistanis. So there's obviously somebody in the Ministry of External Affairs who's potentially sympathetic to this cause, or that the ISI has a mole in the Ministry of External Affairs, and this memo was leaked to ISI, who then handed it over to the Intercept to write an article about it. So that's one possibility. I'm sure that ISI does spy on Indian External Affairs Ministry, and I think it's up to them to figure out who it was. The other possibility is that one of these places where the memo did go to, which is the Indian High Commission in Ottawa, Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C., and all the consulates which are listed on it. At any one of these, there could be somebody who either sold it to ISI or sold it to one of the Sikh pro-Khalistani groups, and then they handed it over to the Intercept. So basically, one possibility is somewhere in the Indian Ministry of External Affairs, where this memo has gone, it was leaked. The second possibility is that the United States, which had intercepted a lot of India's diplomatic communique, and so when Trudeau announced that he had evidence that Indian diplomats were involved and claimed that that intelligence was shared by Five Eyes, which means the US had shared it with Canada, Britain, and other members of the Five Eyes. So at that time, this memo, this is an April memo, and Trudeau's statement was, I think, late September or October. So it is possible that the Canadian government, getting more and more frustrated that the Indian government is not cooperating with it, has leaked this memo after getting it from the US, or the US government has also leaked this memo directly. So these are the 3 possibilities where the memo could have been leaked from. I see no reason for the United States to leak this because the US, I mean, the FBI director is going to India next week. And he obviously is going to be a little bit more aggressive with India, demanding more accountability of people who are involved, etc., whatever is going on. But if this is a genuine leak if the memo is genuine and the Indian government suspects that it was leaked by the US intelligences or US government or US State Department, then the Indian government has an upper hand while talking to him. And anytime Christopher Wray, the FBI director, asks a question, the Indian ministry can say, well, will be happy to share this information with you, but we don't want to read it in the Intercept tomorrow, because anything that we share with you could be leaked. There's a hole in your system. So that is why I doubt whether the US. So the possibility narrows down to somebody in the Ministry of External Affairs has leaked it, either in Delhi or any one of these places, or somebody in the Canadian ministry or intelligence has leaked it to increase pressure. But if it was leaked by the Canadians, then why would they leak it to the ministry to Intercept? They could have leaked it to a prominent Canadian newspaper. So whichever way you follow this path, the possibility that it is a leak looks less and less likely, and the possibility that it is a fabrication looks more and more highly. By just looking at the memo, I can tell you, if I was a newspaper person, or if someone sent me that memo and said, Professor Khan, here's a memo that proves that India was involved. Why don't you talk about it in the conversation? Like I said, the moment I looked at it, I would say, well, this looks like fake. I'm not going to risk the credibility of Khanversations by talking about this memo. I can talk about you and say, you are giving me this document, which to me does not look like an authentic document. So I think that the Ministry of External Affairs did a good job of just dismissing this memo as a fake. But like I said, in order for it to be authentic, there has to be a lot of incompetence in the Ministry of External Affairs. The people who are working for the secretary himself, as the things that I pointed out by just looking at the memo. So I hope you found this interesting. This is quite intriguing. We are getting into the nitty-gritties of diplomacy and intelligence, the intersection of diplomacy and intelligence. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this in English, is because I'm teaching American foreign policy in the next semester. And I want to use this as a case study of the intersection of the role of so-called whistleblowing media, intelligence leaks, diplomacy, pressure tactics. This is a kind of subtle coercive diplomacy if it is a leak. And if it is a fake, even then it is an attempt by a third party to manipulate. So you could argue that either the Sikh pro-Khalistani groups have fabricated this, or this has been fabricated by ISI in an effort to further cause trouble between India and the US. And of course, reports like this continue to chip away at India's international reputation. So I hope you found this discussion interesting. So I hope you found my analysis thought-provoking. So please subscribe to Khanversations, like the video, press the bell icon, share it with everybody else. And if you like to support Khanversations, please join the channel. Until next time, this is Muqtedar Khan, your host.